Most people never realize how strange life becomes right before it changes. On the surface, everything can look painfully ordinary. The same room, the same routine, the same unanswered questions, the same quiet mornings that seem to carry nothing new. You wake up, you move through the day, you handle what is in front of you, and to anyone watching from the outside, your life appears unchanged. But deep underneath that familiar surface, something is moving, something is aligning, something is gathering force in places your eyes cannot yet reach. That is why this season has felt so unusual, not dramatic enough to explain but heavy enough to feel, not visible enough to prove, but strong enough to disturb your peace and awaken your attention. You have been sensing a tension in the air, a subtle pressure, a quiet anticipation, as if your life is standing on the edge of a moment that has not announced itself yet. And that feeling is not meaningless. It often appears when an unexpected turning point is approaching, when an opportunity powerful enough to rearrange your future is already on its way, even before your hands have touched it. This is why you cannot afford to dismiss this season as random, or call your restlessness weakness, or mistake your sensitivity for confusion. Sometimes your spirit detects movement before your circumstances reveal it. Sometimes the soul feels the footsteps of change before the mind can name what is coming. So hear this clearly. A powerful opportunity may be closer than you think, and the deepest question is not whether it exists, but whether you are willing to rise when it arrives. If this message speaks to something you have been feeling but could not explain, stay with it until the end. And if you know in your heart that you are in a season of hidden preparation, leave a comment saying, "I am ready to rise," because there is power in naming the moment before it fully unfolds. What makes this even harder to understand is that the season before a major shift rarely looks important while you are living through it. It usually feels like delay. It feels like silence. It feels like effort with no applause, labor with no visible harvest, growth with no witnesses, prayers with no immediate answer, and discipline that seems to disappear into the dark like a seed buried so deeply it begins to wonder whether the soil has become its grave. But many of the most decisive seasons in a person's life first appear in the clothing of obscurity. This is the silent season before the shift, the stretch of life where you are being built in ways that do not yet produce public evidence. It is where you learn how to continue without external validation, how to keep your standards high when nobody is rewarding you for them, how to remain faithful when the room is empty, and how to keep becoming the person your future will require before your future gives you any proof that it is real. People often underestimate these seasons because they confuse silence with abandonment. But silence does not always mean nothing is happening. Sometimes silence is a workshop. Sometimes silence is a training ground. Sometimes silence is the space where your endurance is being strengthened, your motives are being purified, your attention is being sharpened, and your identity is being separated from applause. There are things that can only be formed in hiddenness because they would be corrupted by premature recognition. If you had received certain opportunities too early, you might have entered them with talent but without gravity, ambition but without emotional maturity, desire but without discernment. And that combination can destroy what a blessing was meant to build. So the quiet was not always your enemy. In many ways, it was your protection. It forced you to develop roots instead of only branches. It taught you how to hold your shape when no one was affirming you. It taught you how to keep going when nothing in the outer world seemed to reflect the effort taking place within you. That is why difficult seasons so often come before life-changing moments. Pressure expands capacity. Delay exposes motive. Repetition builds mastery. Loneliness reveals what in you is real and what in you was only performance. There is a kind of strength you do not discover on easy days. You find it when the path is unclear, when the answers are late, when the doors remain closed, when you are forced to carry your own belief without the help of visible proof. And even though those seasons can feel cruel while you are inside them, they are often carving the internal architecture required to hold what is coming next. Because a bigger life cannot rest securely on a smaller inner foundation. If the next opportunity is heavier, then you must become deeper. If the next assignment is wider, then your character must become stronger. If the next season will place you in rooms where decisions matter more, then your ability to stay grounded, wise, and clear must be forged long before those doors open. This is why you should not be ashamed of the invisible season. Do not apologize for the years that looked unimpressive from the outside. Do not despise the chapter where you were learning, adjusting, failing privately, rebuilding, and trying again without an audience. Those years often contain the raw material of the very breakthrough people later call sudden. And that word, sudden, is one of the strangest illusions in human life. Because what looks sudden from the outside is often the visible arrival of something that has been forming for a very long time. That is why big opportunities so often seem to arrive without warning. They do not always knock politely and give you time to prepare emotionally. They do not always send advance notice to your comfort zone. Major turning points rarely announce themselves with perfect timing, because life itself does not move according to the schedule of your emotional readiness. A phone call can do it, a meeting can do it, a recommendation from the right person can do it. One unexpected conversation can redirect the course of years. One person noticing your consistency can open a door that effort alone could not force open. One ordinary day, which began with the same small routines as every other day, can become the dividing line between the life you knew and the life you are about to enter. This is why wisdom requires you to respect the unseen significance of everyday life. The moment that changes everything often enters through an ordinary hour. It does not always arrive with lightning and music. Sometimes it slips into your day wearing normal clothes. That is part of what makes it powerful. Real opportunities are rarely interested in dramatics before they test your readiness. They simply appear, and in appearing, they reveal whether you have been living in a way that can recognize them. Many people imagine that great opportunities arrive only after everything feels clear, stable, and complete. But that is not how transformation usually works. Often the offer comes while you are still tired, still uncertain, still recovering, still trying to understand your own season. It comes before you feel fully qualified. It comes while parts of you still doubt whether your private effort meant anything. It comes because opportunity does not only respond to polished confidence, it responds to accumulated substance. It responds to what you have become when no one was measuring you. It responds to preparation that looks invisible until the right eyes see it. And when that moment comes, it can feel almost unreal, because the very thing you had stopped trying to force suddenly begins to move toward you with its own momentum. This is why you must not assume that delay means denial. Sometimes life is simply waiting for the right intersection between your preparation and the right opening in the world around you. Sometimes the connection you need is already moving in your direction while you think nothing is happening. Sometimes the conversation that will change your path has not occurred yet, but the people involved are already being positioned. That is why real opportunities often appear when people least expect them. By the time they become visible, the deeper process has often been unfolding for longer than anyone knows. And then comes the moment that feels almost cinematic in its contrast with the ordinary world around it. The offer that changes everything does not always arrive in a glamorous setting. It may come while you are doing something routine, something forgettable, something so normal that your mind is not prepared for interruption. And that is precisely what makes the interruption unforgettable. One message, one invitation, one recognition, one expression of interest from someone influential, powerful, experienced, or deeply resourced. Suddenly the air changes. Suddenly the day feels larger. Suddenly your past effort, which had seemed to vanish into silence, takes on a new meaning, because someone with weight has seen something in you and is responding to it. There is a special kind of shock in being noticed by someone whose attention carries consequence. It unsettles you not only because of who they are, but because of what their recognition suggests. It suggests that your hidden season was not invisible after all. It suggests that the quality you kept building in private was radiating further than you realized. It suggests that the small acts of discipline, the quiet persistence, the inner rebuilding, the refusal to collapse, all of it was forming a signal strong enough to reach beyond your immediate field of view. And this kind of offer is not casual. It is not the sort of thing you brush aside with polite indifference. It carries weight. It has the power to alter your income, your environment, your identity, your circle, your standards, your future decisions, and even the way you understand the last several years of your life. Because when a powerful opportunity appears, it does not only offer advancement, it offers reinterpretation. It forces you to look back at the struggle differently. The season you called wasted begins to look like training. The pain you called meaningless begins to look like refinement. The delays you resented begin to look like protection. This is why such an offer can feel so emotionally intense. It is not just about receiving something new. It is about realizing that your life may have been moving toward this moment in ways you did not understand while you were living through them. And still, even when the offer is real, meaningful, and transformative, your emotional response will not be simple. It will likely split in two directions at once, because the same moment that excites you may also frighten you. The same door that validates you may also expose you. The same recognition that makes your heart race with gratitude may also awaken fears you thought had gone quiet. This is the strange double movement of growth, where excitement and fear arrive together like two currents meeting in the same river. One part of you feels alive because you can sense expansion. Another part of you trembles because expansion always threatens the boundaries of the self you have grown used to being. This is where inner doubts begin to speak more loudly. What if I fail after finally being seen? What if I am not enough for what this requires? What if the image others have of me is stronger than the reality I can maintain? What if this is the moment I get exposed, not elevated? These questions are common, and they do not mean you are weak. They mean you are standing at the border between who you have been and who you are being asked to become. Fear often rises when a new level becomes possible, because the mind prefers familiar limitation to unfamiliar responsibility. It knows how to survive in the smaller room. It has memorized the dimensions of your old life. But now something larger is opening, and the soul feels both called and challenged. This is why confidence must be understood correctly. Confidence is not the magical disappearance of fear. It is not emotional perfection. It is not walking into a bigger opportunity with no trembling, no uncertainty, no awareness of risk. True confidence is the decision to move forward while fear is still speaking. It is the refusal to let self-doubt become self-sabotage. It is the ability to say, I may not feel completely ready, but I will not dishonor my preparation by retreating the moment it is finally time to be seen. In fact, some of the strongest people do not look fearless when their lives begin to change. They look attentive, they look serious, they look stretched, they feel the cost, and they feel the weight, but they keep going because they understand something essential. Growth does not ask whether you feel comfortable enough to proceed. It asks whether you are willing to become larger than the fear that is trying to keep you small. And there is depth in that struggle, because life-changing opportunities do not only reward talent, they reveal identity. They reveal what you believe about your worth, your capacity, your resilience, and your right to occupy a larger space. If you secretly believe you are only meant to survive, then every opportunity to expand will feel like a threat. If you believe that good things are for other people, then your own breakthrough will feel suspicious when it finally appears. If you have become attached to your wounded self-image, then being truly seen can feel more frightening than being ignored. That is why this moment matters so much. It is not only asking whether you want the opportunity, it is asking whether you are willing to release the smaller version of yourself that learned how to live without expecting one. So let yourself feel the excitement, because it is the natural response of a soul recognizing movement. But do not panic when fear appears beside it. Fear is often proof that the moment matters. It is the echo of old limitations meeting new possibility. It is the mind flinching as the future begins to open. The answer is not to wait until fear vanishes. The answer is to stand up inside yourself with greater clarity and say, this opportunity did not arrive to humiliate me, but to stretch me. Not to expose my lack, but to call forward my growth. Not to crush me under pressure, but to reveal the strength hidden under all those silent years. And when you begin to understand that, You stop treating your trembling as a sign to run. You begin to see it as the body's natural response to crossing into a life it has never held before. That is not weakness. That is transition. That is the cost of becoming. And for the person who has endured hidden seasons, unexpected delays, private rebuilding, and long stretches of being overlooked, this moment is not random at all. It is the first visible crack of dawn after a night that asked everything from you. What becomes clear as this moment unfolds is that you were not noticed by accident, and you were not chosen for something larger merely because you had flashes of talent or moments of visible promise. Because people who truly carry influence, wisdom, and responsibility are rarely impressed by talent alone for very long. Talent can attract attention, but character is what sustains trust. Skill can open a conversation, but integrity is what makes someone willing to place real weight in your hands. There are many gifted people in the world, many capable people, many charismatic people, many who know how to shine when the light is on them. But those who have built anything meaningful usually learn to look beyond the surface very quickly. They begin to ask deeper questions, even if they never say them out loud. Can this person handle pressure without losing themselves? Can they remain steady when outcomes are uncertain? Can they be trusted when no one is monitoring them? Can they carry opportunity without becoming careless, arrogant, unstable, or distracted? These are the questions that matter when the stakes become real. This is why patience mattered more than you knew. This is why discipline mattered when it felt repetitive. This is why your quiet decisions mattered, your private standards mattered, your refusal to cut corners mattered, your ability to keep showing up when the world gave you no immediate reward mattered. You were not only building competence, you were building credibility. You were shaping a presence that could be felt even before it was fully understood. And that process takes time, because trust is almost never built in dramatic moments alone. It is built in repetition. It is built in the accumulation of behavior. It is built when your actions begin to tell the same truth over and over again, until people no longer see a performance, but a pattern. Patience taught you not to demand immediate reward for every effort. Integrity taught you not to trade your standards for convenience. Discipline taught you how to keep moving when feelings fluctuated. Consistency taught you how to become reliable to yourself before anyone else depended on you. These things may have seemed invisible in the season you were in, but they were not wasted. They were becoming part of your signal. They were becoming the reason someone could look at you and see more than surface-level promise. They could see substance. They could sense that your strength was not cosmetic. They could tell that your story had passed through difficulty and had not emerged shallow. And that is why it matters to understand that you were seen not only because of what you can do, but because of who you became while life was not giving you easy conditions. Difficult seasons have a way of exposing the truth of a person. They strip away borrowed identity. They test whether your values are real or decorative. They reveal whether you are only committed when things are favourable, or whether you can remain aligned under pressure. You became someone in those seasons, not all at once, not perfectly, not without frustration, but genuinely. You learned how to hold yourself together in rooms where nobody was cheering. You learned how to continue through uncertainty without turning bitter. You learned how to become deeper than your disappointment. And that depth matters now, because the opportunities that truly change a life are not safe in the hands of people who have only been trained by easy seasons. So do not reduce your story to luck. Do not tell yourself you were randomly selected. You were recognized because your hidden years were doing more than hurting you. They were refining you. They were teaching you how to become trustworthy in ways that flashy success never could. And now that the door has appeared, the next challenge is even more subtle, because the opportunity in front of you is not only testing your skill, it is testing your mindset. This is where many people falter, not because they lack ability, but because their inner self-concept has not yet caught up with the level of life that is opening before them. A powerful opportunity does not simply ask whether you can perform the task. It asks whether you can see yourself as someone capable of carrying the weight that comes with it. It asks whether your mind is prepared to inhabit a larger role without collapsing back into an older identity. This is why so many people sabotage what they once prayed for. They can accept the invitation with their hands while rejecting it inwardly with their beliefs. They enter the room physically, but mentally they still feel like outsiders. They begin the work, but secretly they remain suspicious of their own place in it. They receive the offer, but their inner narrative still whispers that they are one mistake away from being exposed as unworthy. And that internal fracture can quietly poison the very thing they were meant to grow into. So understand this clearly. The challenge is not simply whether you will say yes to the opportunity. The deeper challenge is whether you will believe that you can expand enough to carry what the opportunity demands. This is why self-perception matters so much. The mind acts like an invisible ceiling. It does not always stop you at the level of your actual capacity. It often stops you at the level of what you believe you are allowed to become. If you still see yourself through the lens of old rejection, old scarcity, old insignificance, then even abundance will feel unstable. If you still define yourself by past limitations, then new responsibility will feel like a costume rather than an evolution. But growth requires a different question now. You cannot stay trapped in the old habit of asking only, "Am I ready?" Because that question often comes from fear's need for certainty. Fear wants total proof before it moves. Fear wants guarantees before it commits. Fear wants to feel completely prepared before it risks expansion. But life does not usually offer transformation on those terms. A more powerful question is this: what can I become if I step forward? That question changes everything, because it shifts your attention from current incompleteness to living capacity. It recognizes that readiness is not always something you possess fully before the moment. Sometimes readiness is completed by entering the moment. Sometimes the act of stepping forward awakens strengths that could not fully appear while you remained at a distance. The next version of you does not get built entirely in hiding. Part of it is formed in motion, under responsibility, through adaptation, through challenge, through the friction of reality. This is why mindset must mature. You are not being asked to pretend you know everything. You are being asked to trust that your earlier seasons built enough foundation for further growth to happen on solid ground. The opportunity is not demanding perfection. It is asking for willingness, humility, intelligence, and the courage to let your identity stretch beyond old boundaries. So when doubt appears, do not let it become prophecy. See it for what it often is: the residue of an old self trying to survive the arrival of a larger life. And if the new role begins to feel uncomfortable, if the expectations begin to feel sharper, if the pressure begins to reveal areas where you must strengthen, that does not mean you made the wrong choice. It means growth has begun to do what growth always does. It stretches you. It pulls at the edges of your habits. It increases the demands on your attention. It introduces you to environments where the standards are different, the pace is different, the consequences are different, and the margin for drift becomes smaller. Stepping into something bigger often feels less like celebration at first and more like recalibration. The room changes, the conversations change, the level of responsibility rises. Suddenly what used to be enough is no longer enough. Your time must be managed more carefully. Your emotions must be governed more intentionally. Your words must become more precise. Your discipline must become more mature. This is the part many people do not understand when they fantasize about breakthrough. They imagine only relief. They imagine only applause. They imagine only the beauty of arrival. But every new level asks for a new version of you. Higher responsibility is not just a reward, it is a demand. It alters the environment around you and calls forth greater clarity, better habits, stronger boundaries, and a more stable center. Yet even here, you do not need to panic, because the strength required for this next level did not appear out of nowhere. It was already being built in your earlier struggles, often without your full awareness. Every time you had to manage disappointment without quitting, you were building resilience. Every time you had to continue without visible reward, you were building endurance. Every time you had to choose discipline over impulse, you were building self-command. Every time you had to recover from uncertainty and keep moving, you were strengthening the exact inner muscles that now matter most. This is why your earlier pain was not irrelevant to your future pressure. It was training. It was capacity building. It was teaching you how to withstand weight. You may feel stretched now, but stretching is not the same as breaking. Growth feels tight because it pulls you past familiar limits. It asks you to stop living from the habits that were enough for a smaller season. And yes, there will be days when you feel the strain of it. There will be moments when you miss the simplicity of your earlier life, even if you also long to leave it. There will be moments when the new expectations feel heavy, when the room feels bigger than your confidence, when you wonder whether the cost of expansion is higher than you imagined. But this is exactly where you must remember that discomfort is not always a warning sign. Sometimes it is evidence that dormant capacity is being awakened. Muscles burn when they are being strengthened. Vision blurs before it refocuses. Identity trembles before it reorders itself around a larger truth. And the real danger is not the stretching itself. The real danger is shrinking in response to it, retreating into old habits because they feel safer than growth. Do not do that now. Do not insult your own becoming by demanding that the next chapter feel as comfortable as the old one. The new role is not supposed to fit the old self perfectly. It is supposed to call you higher. And as this expansion becomes visible, another challenge begins to form around the edges of your breakthrough. Because opportunities do not arrive in isolation. They bring attention. They attract commentary. They stir curiosity, projection, envy, and pressure from people who may not understand the cost of what you went through to reach this moment. Some will suddenly become interested in your life now that your value is visible. Some will question whether you truly belong where you are going. Some will offer advice not because they understand your path, but because your movement unsettles their own sense of place. Some will become strangely invested in your decisions only after your potential begins to look real. This is why protecting your focus after the breakthrough matters just as much as surviving the silence before it. A new season can be damaged by too much noise. Attention can become a fog if you do not know how to filter it. Outside opinions can weaken your center if you let every voice reach your core. This is where confidence must become guarded, not arrogant, but protected. You cannot let the opinions of people who did not build your endurance define your next step. You cannot let envy disguised as concern confuse your direction. You cannot let sudden praise intoxicate you, and you cannot let sudden skepticism wound you more deeply than it deserves. Both applause and criticism can become distractions if you lean on them too heavily. Stay grounded. Stay rooted in values deeper than approval. Remember what carried you before visibility arrived. It was not the crowd. It was not noise. It was the quiet architecture of your standards, your patience, your faithfulness to process, your devotion to what was true, even when nobody celebrated it. Those same values must continue to hold you now, and this also means you must become selective about access. Not everyone who becomes curious about your path is meant to influence it. Not everyone who notices your momentum is qualified to speak into it. Some people will want proximity to your rising because they did not respect your building. Others may become warm only when they sense movement. Others may try to attach themselves to the outcome while never having honored the process. Be wise. Kindness does not require openness without discernment. You can remain gracious without becoming available to every opinion, every invitation, every demand for explanation. Protect your inner world. Protect the clarity that got you here. Protect your time, your attention, your confidence, and your peace. Because once opportunity begins to move, one of the greatest threats is scattered focus. Pressure from the outside can make you forget what matters on the inside. So stay close to your center. Return often to your purpose. Ask yourself who you are becoming, not just what others are saying. Let your values remain louder than the crowd. And above all, do not let the presence of envy or doubt around you make you question the validity of what is unfolding. People often react strongly when someone else becomes visible in the very area where they once felt hidden. Their response is not always about you. Sometimes it is about what your movement reflects back to them. You do not need to absorb that. You only need to remain steady. And when you finally become still enough to see this moment clearly, the real meaning of the offer begins to emerge. And it becomes obvious that this is not only about success in the external sense. Yes, it may bring resources, access, influence, movement, and a changed future. Yes, it may alter your environment and expand what is possible for you materially or professionally. But the deepest meaning of this opportunity is inner, not outer. The offer exists to reveal how much growth has already taken place within you. It is a mirror as much as it is a door. It shows you that the person standing here now is not the same person who first entered the silent season confused, untested, and uncertain of their own capacity. It proves that something in you has matured enough to meet a larger life. It reveals that your hidden labor was not imaginary, your endurance was not pointless, your struggle was not merely about survival, it was also about formation. This is why the moment matters so much, because the offer is not only presenting a future, it is confirming a transformation. It is showing you that what once felt like delay was also development. What once felt like obscurity was also construction. What once felt like emptiness was often preparation taking place beneath the level of visibility. You are not standing here because fortune spun blindly in your direction. You are standing here because something real was built in you over time. Luck can create a moment, but it cannot create the internal architecture needed to sustain one. Preparation can, character can, endurance can, consistency can, quiet refinement can. This moment is evidence, not accident. Evidence that you did not only endure life, you learned from it. Evidence that pressure did not only wound you, it shaped you. Evidence that you became someone more stable, more aware, more grounded, and more capable than you were when the process began. And when you understand that, gratitude deepens. You stop seeing the offer only as a prize and begin to see it as revelation. It reveals that your effort had direction even when you could not see the map. It reveals that your private becoming was visible in ways you did not know. It reveals that the future is not arriving to rescue a powerless version of you, but to meet the stronger self that hardship has been preparing all along. So receive this moment with seriousness and wonder. Let it humble you and strengthen you at the same time. Let it remind you that the life opening in front of you is not disconnected from the life you survived behind you. They belong to the same story. The hidden season and the visible moment are not opposites. They are cause and consequence. They are root and fruit. And now that the fruit is beginning to appear, do not minimize the root system that made it possible. Honor what you built. Honor who you became. Honor the discipline, the tears, the waiting, the private rebuilding, the invisible decisions, the days nobody understood, the nights you kept going quietly. All of it is here now, not always in literal form, but in you, in your steadiness, in your perception, in your maturity, in your ability to hold what is coming without being destroyed by it. That is the real meaning of the offer. It is not here merely to change your circumstances. It is here to show you, with undeniable force, that your preparation was real, your growth was real, and your becoming was never wasted.